Today we are going to be talking about laws and cases impacting the education of English language learning students. First up, we have Meyer v. Nebraska in 1923. This was arguably the first United States Supreme Court case to address foreign language teaching in the American educational systems. In this case, Nebraska law barred that state public and private schools could not offer instruction in any language other than English. A teacher at a Lutheran private school was charged for reading the stories of the Bible to a student in German. This law was made in Nebraska at the peak of the anti-immigration sentiment. The justices on the court found that this law was unconstitutional. Justice J. McReynolds wrote, "The protection of the U.S. Constitution extends to all, to those who speak other languages as well as to those born with English on the tongue." This case was important to language education policy since it established the precedent that parents have a constitutional right to choose how their child is brought up, including a say in their education. Next, we have the case Mendez v. Westminster in 1947. This case struck down upon the segregation of Mexican and Mexican-American students in 4 California school districts. The schools segregated the students on the ground that the children were so deficient in English that they had to separate them from the rest of their peers. The families fought back against this, saying that removing them from the general school environment with English-immersed peers actually put them at a deficit by making the students lose ground in learning English in such segregated settings. This helps to lay the early frameworks for inclusive settings that work on fostering an English-rich culture around those students who are English deficient, so that they will be truly immersed into the language with their peers. Next, we have our first piece of vital legislation to English language learners, the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 has one extremely important title, Title VI, for English language learners. Title VI of this act, passed by Congress, states that there can't be discrimination on the basis of race, color, or national origin in the operation of all programs receiving federal operational funding. This means that any institution that will be receiving federal funds from the government, such as a public school in Texas, is not allowed to discriminate against their students on the basis of race, color, or national origin. This protects students from discrimination and segregation and entitles them to equal treatment by any institution that will be receiving government funding. This led to the Bilingual Education Act of 1968. This was an amendment to the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965, in which a major section, then known as Title VII, was added. This was implemented in order to help children with limited English proficiency. Through this, federal aid could be provided for educational programs, teacher training, development of instructional materials, and the promotion of parental involvement. The issue with this amendment was whether its goal was to speed transitions to English proficiency or promote bilingualism. Currently, this law has been revised over the years, changing names and wording of the context throughout this time. Next, we have a very important landmark Supreme Court decision, Law v. Nichols in 1974. The 1974 Supreme Court case is arguably the most important court decision regarding the education of language minority students. This was brought to the courts by Chinese American students from San Francisco who were placed in mainstream classrooms despite the lack of proficiency in English. The school district employed the sink or swim method on these students. In this method, students are just placed into a classroom because it's arguably equal environmental opportunity between all students, and they're either left to sink or swim in their English proficiency. The school district argued that they were creating equal learning environment by putting all the students in the same classroom, but the courts and the family strongly disagreed. The court said that just by placing all students in an equal environment is not giving all students the equal opportunity to learn and show what they have learned. After this decision came the law remedies from the U.S. Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights. The Office of Civil Rights used the law decisions to go after other school districts that continued to ignore the needs of their LEP students. Another really important piece of legislation coming from 1974 was the Equal Educational Opportunities Act. This came after the decision of Law v. Nichols in 1974 that challenged inadequate instruction for language minorities. After the decision in that case, Congress passed this law that mandated that states could not deny equal educational opportunity to any individual. This works in accordance with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 as well. That prohibits the discrimination on the basis of race, color, or national origin in programs that receive federal funding. This basically sets that educational agencies had to take appropriate action to overcome language barriers in order to ensure equal participation of a student in an instructional program. This really did work to firmly establish that we are not just going to put students into an equal learning environment, but we're going to overcome these language barriers that they come bringing with them to school to ensure that they're getting equal participation in learning. They're not just going to get to sit in the classroom, they're going to learn as much as their peers are going to. Up next, we have a really important case, Serna versus Portales, also in 1974. This was a really big year for English language learners. This case in 1974 supported bilingual education outside of the context of desegregation. In this case, there was a white majority school in New Mexico that was failing to meet the needs of the Spanish surname students. The court found that the school's programs for these students was completely inadequate. Just like law also decided in 1974, these schools were not allowed to ignore the unique language and educational needs of their English language learning students. The court mandated that they completely remodel their program and expand it to meet the needs of these Spanish surname students. Then, in 1979, came the 25 May Memorandum. On the 25th of May of 1979, the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare clarified the Title VI requirements concerning the responsibility of school districts to provide equal educational opportunity to English language learners. This explained in detail the violations that could happen of Title VI. Some violations concerned with this memo are as followed. 1. Programs for students that are not designed to teach them English as soon as possible or operate on a dead-end track. 2. Parents whose English is limited do not receive notes and information from schools in a language that they can understand. And 3. School districts cannot assign students to special education programs solely on the grounds of the student's inability to speak English. The Department of Health, Education, and Welfare felt that they had to clarify the Title VI requirements because there had been so many violations. So they sent out this memo with these 3 violations, making sure that the schools were completely clear of their expectations if they were to be following Title VI and to receive federal funding. Next is a very important court case, Filer v. Doe in 1982. The United States Supreme Court issues a decision in this case brought before them. In this decision, they found that undocumented children have the right to attend free public school in the area that they reside. In Texas, the schools could educate the undocumented children, but did not receive money for educating the child, or they could just exclude them from the school setting altogether. There was a school district in East Texas who followed the second option, excluding the children from the school setting altogether, which the Supreme Court ultimately declared unconstitutional. This was Texas state statute, and so they declared Texas state statute unconstitutional as it was a violation of the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. The court thought that it would be better to educate the children and help them integrate into the communities instead of just throwing them out into the cold. This was vital legislation to ensuring the equal educational rights of immigrant children, such as some English language learner students. And finally, we get to our most recent piece of legislation impacting language literacy acquisition in English language learners. The No Child Left Behind Act of 2001. The No Child Left Behind Act is the reauthorization of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965 that gives funds to the states to improve the education for students that are limited in the English proficiency. This act federally funds the public schools to assist children in learning English and meet the state academic content and student academic achievement standards set forth. The legislation for LEP students is found under Title III of the No Child Left Behind Act. Through this act, a lot of the context and a lot of the wording was changed because there have been serious fundamental problems in the system with past legislation. States were going to be held more accountable for the success of their student and they completely eradicated the notion that there would be some sort of knowledge gap between an English language learner and a native English speaker. This act really revamped the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965 in order to provide equal and fair opportunities for education for all students, not just the select groups. Over time, the legislation and cases have led up to this great change for English language learners in our country today. And although this legislation is still a work in progress, things have gotten immensely better for students over the years. We've gone from times in the early 1900s of anti-immigration sentiment all the way up into this culture of immersion into not just reaching English proficiency, but promoting bilingualism and promoting cultural heritage across students of many different walks of life. And this is just a little tad bit into looking into how legislation has changed over the year. Thank you for listening today.